G'day legends, it's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here. Before we get stuck into another great interview brought to you by Crannk.com and thatmetalstation.com, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and that way you can keep up to date with all the best music and interviews from all over the world. G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with Crannk.com and with thatmetalstation.com, and today I'm getting to have a chat with Jay Reiter of Satyrn Studios. That's Satyrn. Don't be confused with Satyrn Studios. He's also Skrog, and I believe Skullfuckers Incorporated as well. And there's comics, there's games, there's a whole bloody... You're a busy bloody man. Cheers for making some time to have a chat with me, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm getting to chat to you about the Forever Reigning, a tribute to Slayer, is the main reason I'm having a chat to you today, which comes out on April 29th. Really, really cool album, man. Great lot of bands you've got there as well. It must have been fun getting this compilation all together, right?
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, I really appreciate that. And it's been very rewarding, a lot of fun, a little stress. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't all, a cakewalk, but it was a labor of passion, like every single, band and musician that got involved with this thing, this record, we all just absolutely love Slayer, and we're all kind of a little disappointed that they're not around anymore, but we just want to make sure we keep their legacy alive. And I figured the best way to do that, and just get some new musicians out there playing the music that we all love.
Exactly. Slayer are one of those bands, I believe, that had that impact with every bloody metalhead. I remember going and seeing them. I think it was the second band I seen live, man, and they were playing headlining with Machine Head. I think it was like 99, maybe, over here in Australia. And
that would have been a great show.
Oh, it was unreal. I seen him, dude, and I remember busting my lip, middle of raining blood, some dude's boot right into my face, and just blood everywhere. I'm like, this is so fucking metal right now. I'm bleeding, Slayer's cranking. I'm like, can't get any more metal than this. And for me, that was one of the fucking best highlights of my younger metal self.
Nice. Well, and there's a reason Slayer's one of the, they call him one of the big four. I mean, They are timeless. They influenced literally everyone who's involved in the genre, whether they even acknowledge it or not. It just they're basically the Black Sabbath of thrash. I mean, Metallica's probably the Led Zeppelin of thrash, and I'd say Slayer would probably be the Black Sabbath of thrash.
Yeah, and they held themselves so bloody well, You got the Gary Holt signed seal of approval as well on this album, That must have been pretty cool to have that.
That was a crapshoot. I didn't know if he was going to do it or not. And I was like, what the hell? I'm just going to, shoot him an offer and see if he's interested in even getting involved in something like this. He didn't even hesitate. He was just like, yeah, let's do this. And it was so rad that he did it. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, Gary. Thank you if you're listening to this.
Yeah, and for them to be able to actually sit down and listen to that, and give his couple of favorite tracks. And it would have been cool when he's going Skullfuckers, man,
That felt good. I'm not going to lie, because I did not, just so everyone knows, I did not tell him to say that. I wanted him to pick his own music, his own bands. Who do you like? And he picked that, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. I really dug that the divine intervention from you guys, Skrog, as well. That was a really, really cool track. It must have been fun for you, not only being a big Slayer fan, but playing these tracks as well with both your bands there, but also getting in the other bands you had there, like Disinter, Distal Descent, which is the most recent film clip track you've released off the Slayer one, is it?
You got it.
Yep, cool. I got that one right. That was
literally just loaded it up on YouTube like 30 seconds prior to calling you. So.
Yeah, I noticed that, man. And then you had Slow Kill, I'd heard of Overt Enemy, and Blowtoad. Not only was this fun for me hearing the bands that I knew before play these Slayer tracks, but also having a taste of these other bands and going back and going, fuck, now I've got to go check out these bands as well, and then listening to their music, but also you guys all putting your own take on it, not trying to fucking just do a carbon copy of the track.
Right. And that's the trick. What's too far? How much of your own signature do you put on something before it's no longer true to the original music? And each band has their own opinion. Every musician has their own opinion. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer except in the eye of the beholder, so to speak. So I know with Skullfuckers, we wanted to try and be a little bit more true to the original source material, but a couple of these other guys, they really wanted to put their signature on it as best as they could. And I think every single musician on this record really put their A game forward. You know, not a single person viewed this as some slough off, no nothing thing. Everyone took this very seriously.
Yeah, when did you start getting this together, and how did this idea start? Where did this all come from?
Sure. So I've been involved with music for several decades now. I mean, I've got, everything from being a touring musician to a manager of bands to, working specifically for this nightclub or that nightclub, whether it's booking bands as a promoter, just kind of humping gear and, getting stuff ready for stage shows. I've just been all over the place. And, my passion is just getting right in there and, not just playing the music, but I like, organizing it and structuring it and recording it. I just like all the levels of it. So, after COVID hit, I was kind of lucky. I qualified for a local grant. So I got some pennies from the sky, so to speak. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to invest in some, fairly high end recording equipment. And now I need to make sure I know how to use this recording equipment. So rather than immediately jumping in and doing original, new songs and new material, I wanted to kind of do some covers because it would give me some immediate comparison for audio quality. Like I can, just take Raining Blood, for example. We all know how that song is supposed to sound. It's iconic for a reason. So now if I go and record it and, mix it and master it and all that, I can go back to the Slayer version and just say, okay, where is this lacking? What am I not doing right? What am I doing correctly? What am I doing wrong? So it's just learning my gear, meeting new bands, networking. It just seemed like the right thing to do. And I got lucky, and so far so good,
Yeah, so this is the first release from your studio. What's that whole process been like, starting the studio? Has it, how's that all going, man? And what was the idea behind that? What was the motivation to get that going? I've got a good idea, but I want to hear from you.
Sure. So I'm kind of one of those guys that, like, maybe a little OCD perhaps, or maybe even maybe a little ADHD. Sometimes I get those letters confused. So maybe even a little dyslexic while we're at it. I don't know. But like sometimes I'll get involved with the project and, I either get bored, I get a little burnt out, maybe I need a break. So I'll jump over here and do something completely different. So my three main interests have always been music, comic books, and movies. So as long as I'm working on one of those three things, I'm in my happy little world. And so the idea was to create an environment that I could, go to work every day, dress the way I want to dress, act the way I want to act. I don't have to adhere to any rules other than the rules I create, and somehow make this thing profitable. I'm trying. And so it did start. The company started off as a comic book company initially.
Yeah.
I came out of college from the Savannah College of Art and Design with a bachelor's degree in film and television, and then my minor was in sequential arts. So, it's comic books, basically a glorified term for comic books. And, I've always thought that there should be a larger connection between the metal world and the comic book world. They kind of shake hands a little bit, but there isn't really, a huge thing there. And I wanted to try to bridge that gap. You know what I mean? So I decided to contact Cannibal Corpse artist Vince Locke. He does all of the Cannibal Corpse album covers that you're familiar with, that you've seen throughout the years. And he was cool. He decided to do the artwork for the first issue. I wrote it. And then I've got some other artists that basically picked up on the series. And, that kind of ran its course for the time that I was dealing with it. And, I needed to get back. My soul needed to express itself musically. So I kind of shifted gears. It's like, okay, now it's time to do this. And the nice thing is this experiment, this tribute to Slayer I've learned a lot. It's kind of working.
Yep.
And so I think what I'm going to do is towards the end of the year, I'm going to do another one. I'll do a Cannibal Corpse tribute, and then I'll link that in with the Arise comic book, this zombie comic book that Vince Locke worked on. And by the end of the year, I'll try to, do a nice big push and kind of show everyone how I want this all to link together,
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about Arise, man. I want to know more about Arise. I've seen a little bit of it, and I'm like really intrigued. So I love zombie survival. I've got all the bloody Dead Rising games. I've State of Decay. I've spent so many hours. For me, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, when I was growing up, they were like the horror movie you'd watch. So tell me a little bit more about Arise, man.
Sure. Well, I've since I was a little kid, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 79. So I was, gosh, what was I, probably 4 years old when Michael Jackson's Thriller came out on MTV. And, y'all younger kids probably don't even know what MTV is. You're like, what is that? Like reality TV, something?
Yeah.
No, they used to play music on
I
that
know.
station once upon a time, like nothing but music. And when Michael Jackson released his Thriller music video, that was a really, really, really big deal. It was at the time the biggest, I believe, most expensive music video ever produced. It was the longest running time music video, I want to say. The production budget was out of this world, and they got the director of An American Werewolf in London to direct it, Jonathan Landis. So, people today maybe not, they don't really understand how important that video was. And like I said, I was 4 years old. I remember very well the premiere. My stepsisters, they were older than me, so they were all excited. They wanted to watch it, and they had me watch it with them. And they're like, let's freak out our kid brother. And I'm pretty sure I shit my pants and screamed and ran to mommy and cried, and I was scared out of my gourd. And ever since then, I've been warped and a little weird. Thank you, Michael Jackson. And I've had reoccurring zombie nightmares, and so I've always wanted to extinguish that and figured out what is it that makes that, why is that stuck in my head. So the Arise storyline allows me to kind of get into my own brain and dissect what's going on in there. Yep. And I was just able to come up with a character that hopefully is interesting in a series of events that are eventful that make people want to read it. So I don't want to give too much away, but I can tell you a little bit about the characters if you want. It's up to you.
No, where's the best place we can get along and for people to go check that out, Jay? Like, I'm curious on that side of it, dude.
Sure. So I am in the process of developing the Satyrn Studios website. It is live right now. So you can go to www.saturnstudios.com. That's Saturn with a Y, not a U, as you pointed out. I don't have the comics posted there yet. Probably by the end of the week, you'll be able to order them. I've got the first 3 issues in inventory printed right now here at my shop, so I can fill orders immediately. The last 3 issues of the series, it's just a 6-issue series. They're done. They just need to basically be lettered and printed, which will take a couple of weeks to do. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to pick a date to really kind of relaunch the franchise, so to speak. I kind of left it on a cliffhanger at the end of issue 3, and then I did like a real soft release just as kind of a test, like what did people like, what did people not like, how can I make this better, is this even going to work? I took that data, finished the last 3 issues, and like I said, I think I'm going to try to do a larger launch probably end of summer, and then really kind of lead it into the Hollywood season, or not Hollywood, I'm sorry, Halloween, the Halloween season for issues 4, 5, and 6. So issue 4 will be October, issue 5 will be November, issue 6 will be December. And then maybe by Christmas, I might do a graphic novel, maybe January. I'm not quite sure, but the issues will be in physical format, available to be ordered on the website. Otherwise, you can get them on, oh gosh, what's the name of the digital comic book company that's out there right now?
I'll chuck the link in there anyway for the people that want to check. So check the comments, or when I post this up on the website, I will put the link in there for that as well. So just send it to me after, Jay. We'll go through Curtis anyway. Dude, can I chat about the bands like you're in as well? Tell me a little bit about Skrog and then Skullfuckers Incorporated, man.
Sure. So Skrog is supposed to be like an industrial style band. I always dug stuff like Ministry, 9 Inch Nails, a couple of Marilyn Manson songs, Bile. I just like that electronic, heavy metal amalgamation thing. I was always fascinated by it, so I wanted to do something with that. So I created an album in 2012, released it in 2013, dropped it with a record label that basically was a complete garbage disaster record label. I'm not going to name names.
No,
You guys
yeah.
can do your own research and figure it out. They were terrible. They gave me zero support. They were looking for an instant hit, and if they didn't get it, they're going to drop you and not do a damn thing with you. They wouldn't even print CDs for me. So, it took me some time to just kind of figure out what the hell I'm doing. And
it would have taken a bit to get over that process as well. You're dropping this album, then the label you're working with, whatever, just treats it like it's like it's fucking nothing, man. It would have been very disheartening going from that, and it would have been like, well, fuck, man.
Well, and I self-funded it too, so it's not like the record label had anything at stake whatsoever. And so it's like they just basically took my money, my hard effort, my soul, my everything I poured into this, and they just, whatever, we don't give a shit about this. You didn't create a hit. So
a lot of bands are the fucking too. That's the thing people don't realize when you listen to your band, your favorite band from the underground scene or whatever, you're listening to Skrog or Skullfuckers, a band you really love, man. A lot of these, pretty well fucking 90% of the bands are self-funded, man. The only way they're paying for albums and fucking studio time, you got your studio, which does cut down costs, but you still got to fucking pay. You're paying through merch, album fucking sales and everything like that. If you haven't got the fans at least come along to your shows, buying a little bit of merch, it's really hard for bands to keep pushing forward unless you're fucking paying out of your pocket. Like, I've got a day job to pay for what I'm doing here, and I know most bands have a day job as well to pay for their fucking music career as well. So I don't feel much different than you all, and I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and then that's the metal music is 90% of the time it's a labor of love, unless you either get lucky or you're just so phenomenal. Like Pantera, like no one can touch them.
Yep.
They're one of those enigma bands where it's just I don't care how good you are, you're not that good. Slayer, another one. It doesn't matter how good you are, you're not that good. So you know what I mean? Like you unless you're lucky, it's a lot of self-funding. It's a lot of trying to figure out your work schedule, your home life schedule. So that was another kind of motivation with doing the record label side of Satyrn Studios. I'm hoping to be able to offer something, once I'm a little bit more organized and kind of got the wheels turning a little bit more. I want to be able to offer an alternative solution to bands so that, we can all make some money. I'm not trying to get rich. I want bands. I think it's absurd that a lot of bands have to play concerts for virtually nothing.
Yeah.
You've seen those memes before. You pay $5,000 to buy a drum kit. You pay $500 to get the vehicle just to get paid $5 at the door when you perform.
Yeah, to get some beer money. You may get a beer each or something out of the show, you know what I mean? That makes it important for people to get along and buy merch. I know I push it a lot, and my listeners are like, Jay's going on his merch rant again. But for me, I love fucking going to shows and still buying merch. I know a lot of the time I get in, cunts like come down, take some photos, do this and that, Jay. But if I do that, I'm still spending money on merch. I'll go over to the merch table, buy some shirts, because I know how important it is for these bands who are, as you're saying, paying for petrol money, come along to these shows and basically just doing it for the love of it. So when you get over and buy some merch, it fucking means the world to these bands, dude.
Yeah, I mean, most bands, they don't make money when you buy a CD or if you download, you pay for your downloads or whatever. Piracy's bad, kids. We don't do that. No. Pay for your music that you listen to. Just got to put that out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of that money goes to the record label because they got to pay for promotions of the record. They have to pay for the packaging, et cetera, et cetera. So the bands, they really make their money, like you were just saying, on shirts, hats, stickers, those kinds of things, the merch. That's, you got to, if you love the band, that's the way to support them.
Best place to support Skrog, man. Where do we go to get behind you guys?
All of Skrog and Skullfuckers merchandise will be available on the Satyrn Studios website.
Yeah. I was over there before, and you've also got the film clips up there, the little bit of the Gary Holt, stamp seal of approval, as I say there, man. It's really, really cool. Tell me about Skullfuckers Incorporated, man.
So that was a band I started up with a buddy, a local friend of mine, Sean Benish. We called him Crotch. And we were theatrical metal. We were just off the wall, zany dudes. We kind of had a revolving door policy with musicians that would be able to deal with us because, we would just we write crazy music, get up on stage, do crazy things. We had a following that, what kind of antics are these bands going to do next? There's all sorts of weird rumors. If you come into the Wisconsin area, particularly the Chippewa Valley region, and you bring up the name Skullfuckers, somebody at a bar is going to be like, I know that band. Those guys are weird. And they're going to tell you some odd story, So it was theatrical metal, but it was a lot of fun and a lot of energy. And I decided that, back in the early new millennium when we were younger and stuff, we didn't have a budget to properly record our music, so all of our demos and stuff just kind of sounded like shit. I feel like we never properly captured the sound of Skullfuckers.
Okay.
So what I'm focusing on right now is re-recording and then doing a proper release of our catalog. And we've got about 3 albums that we're going to do a proper release on. So the next 3 years, you're going to see some Skullfucker releases, and we're going to be pushing on that pretty heavily. And we'll get it out there. You'll know the stories. You'll know who we are.
Yeah, it must be fun for you creatively to wear these different hats. You know what I mean? Wearing the producer and the studio side of things, then the musician, and also, with your comic and your storytelling and that side of things. For you, that must be, I know, really busy, but also creatively must be great, because then you're not going to get too burnt out in one department. If you're laying down some music and you want to go over and do some comics and some artwork stuff, you can do that. And it's, I suppose, avoiding a bit of that burnout, but keeping really busy too at the same time.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's everything that you just said. Everything you said is correct. It helps to avoid burnout and so on and so forth. I kind of joke around and I tell people I'm an army of one. But the problem with being an army of one, you talked about the benefits, and those are all accurate and true. But the problems of being an army of one is, if a project doesn't get done because I overslept, or I just didn't want to go to work, or I got distracted on this other thing, and this thing over here isn't getting done and it's getting neglected, there's no one to pick up that slack. You know what I mean? So that's another thing I've kind of learned through the past several years and trying to make a go of things. This year, I'm also focusing on putting together a really solid team that's helping me properly release the materials and the artwork and the products that I'm trying to create, and actually get stuff out there. And I want to be a job maker for people. I want people to come to work here and enjoy what they do, rather than just turning out widgets at a factory.
That's exciting, because as you were saying before, you behind the scenes as well, you're a musician, you understand what it's like to be a musician and have an album go out and it just fucking be treated like shit as a musician, one, and the album. So, it must be great for you to go, fuck, now I can actually do some work and help out some bands and fucking lay down some music and, do it right as well going forward. And how is the Wisconsin scene? How is your scene going over there post everything now, with everything coming back? It's fucking internationals are just coming back to Australia now. And how's the scene going over your way now, man?
So Wisconsin's kind of divided into like four or five quadrants.
Okay.
I'm in what I guess you'd call West Central Wisconsin. So it's kind of on the western side of the state and in the center of the state.
Okay.
Certain regions of the state, music's doing really good. Here in my region, blues, old dad rock is still doing okay. In when Skullfuckers was in its heyday in the early new millennium, so like 2000 to 2006, let's say, Eau Claire was a booming metal community. You could go on any given night to any club and you're going to see an original band that's kick ass and you're going to be blown away. Now those guys grew up, the club scenes have kind of died, no one's left to fill in the gaps, and Eau Claire's a little stagnant right now. And I'm not thrilled about that. I'm not going to say I'm going to be the one to change it, but I'm sure going to try to help rekindle what it used to be, because Eau Claire was the Seattle of the new millennium that no one ever knew about. It was a really cool place to be at that time.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, I don't know if it was the same over where you are, but here in Australia, we had a few venues that would put on metal shows that were close to closing or closed during that time as well. And the thing is, with, the metal scene, it's hard for other venues to have the confidence to fucking fill that void to put on shows. I know I'm in the middle of nowhere in South Australia, like 3 hours from the closest city, and to get a venue to put on a metal show here is like next to impossible. There's like 4 or 5 main towns, all with pub and club and everything. But to get them to want to put on a fucking metal show, like I know all these metal bands, and we tried to get bands here, and they'd rather put on some fucking cover band, part of the language, but someone playing somebody else's music, or a dude come up and press play on his deck and then go, like, I don't get it. And when there's so many great original bands like here in Australia and in the world, I know over there, and you're seeing it'd be just booming, all these bands wanting to play, it just sucked too.
Yeah, and you know, a large part of it, I got to kind of wag my finger a little bit at these nightclub owners. A lot of them don't pay shit. You know, like they expect your band, who is, you know, your band collectively, let's say you got 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys in your band. Collectively, you've all put in together maybe 10,000 hours in rehearsal time, practicing your craft, getting good enough to be on a stage and actually entertain an audience. And so these jackass club owners want to hire a band, pay them dirt to do it, while we're bringing people into your fucking bar. We're entertaining them so that you can make money on them getting drunk and abusing, you know, alcohol.
Yeah,
it's just fucked up. And then like some of these guys, they don't even have the courtesy to have a PA. They expect the band to bring a PA with them, and it's like, it's just so it's so frustrating sometimes. These club owners just have their heads so far up their ass, they don't know what it's like and how to cater properly to a musician or a band. So just know that in advance. You know, you fledgling bands that are trying to do it and get on the road, it's an uphill battle, and it takes balls of steel to make it happen. But if you got the fortitude to do it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can make a career out of it. You can do it.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. It's just hard, bloody work, constant work. I said, like 10,000 plus hours of rehearsal. That's not a fucking joke. And then add in all the hours, the other hours behind the scene as well. Look, I want to jump into Slayer, Jay. I want to ask you, man, when did you first get into Slayer? And tell us a little bit about how you first got into Slayer.
Sure. So like Metallica was my gateway drug, if you will, of course.
Yes.
And you know, I was a little bit of a late bloomer. You know, a lot of the kids like in grade school, like middle school age, let's say between the ages of 12 and 14, they were coming to school wearing Slayer shirts and Metallica shirts, and I'm coming to school wearing like a polo, you know, thing, and you know, got picked on a little bit, you know, and then I finally started like, you know, oh, there's this thing called MTV, and you know, Beavis and Butthead. I don't know if you remember that at all. Yes, that was Beavis and Butthead, believe it, again, is one of those things that people don't understand. They weren't a part of that era, but it was that vehicle that was entertaining to the adolescent crew because you had crude cartoon humor. You know, you had these two dumb shits that would, you know, that liked fire and did dumb shit, but they would also, they listened to really good music, and they would play these music videos on their program. So you're exposed at the right age to bands that just weren't normally accessible. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there's this band called White Zombie and they're fucking incredible. And wow, Pantera and Slayer, and who are all these bands? So, you know, Beavis and Butthead really, I mean, it's goofy to say it, but that played a huge role for me and a lot of people I know into just expanding their horizons and getting involved with music and metal music specifically. So about my teenage years, early teenage years, I started getting, you know, going from Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, kind of went down the big four, you know, and then once you hit Slayer, it's like, oh shit, this is fucking incredible. So then you go Cannibal Corpse, and you go even further down that rabbit hole, and yeah, you know what I mean. And then, you know, once you're down the Cannibal Corpse slope, game over. You're entrapped for life. It's metal or nothing, you know.
Yeah, I was the same. I started out, I think Metallica was one of the first metal bands I kind of got into. You know, I grew up, born in the 80s, like 1980, and my mum was into all that fucking 80s rock stuff, and it was kind of went from there. And then I heard Metallica, and then I started hanging out with these guys, and they were metalheads, and they were just flat out into Morbid Angel and fucking really, really heavy shit, and that just blew my mind. And then I'd sit there one night late at night, and I think the first clip that I really, really remember of seeing of Slayers was we have this program over here called Rage. It's on from about fucking, I don't know, 1 a.m. till fucking 5 or 6 in the morning here in Australia, and they just play music all the way through. And for about an hour and a half, they'd have a metal bit. I think it was about 2 in the morning or 3. So you'd sit there, and I remember watching Season to the Abyss, man, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? This is so bloody cool. And it just kind of really blew me away. And as you're saying, it was a slippery slope from there. And it was a lot harder to get music back then. Now the kids of these days, they can just jump over and fucking, you know what I mean, buy it or fucking listen to a film clip. For us, it was like you'd have to sit there with your tape deck and wait for it to come just to get a recording, or where I'm like 400 Ks away from a closest record store that sells any metal. That was the only way that I could catch bands like that.
Right. Or like, there were those like gurus who knew more than you did. They were so tapped in and plugged into the underground. They'd have these tapes, and again, kids don't know what this is. There were these things called cassette tapes.
With a little sticky tape over the bit.
Yeah, and they, these guys would make compilation tapes, like a few songs by this band, that band, and these things would get circulated around. And if you just happen to be on the right mailing list, you'd get a tape in the mail or whatever, and you'd play it, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Sacred Reich? What the fuck? I never heard of that, or whatever, And what was kind of neat about the metal community back in those days, the 90s and the early new millennium and stuff like that, before the internet was really a thing, you had to rely on other people to tell you and get you in the know. You had to get to know people. You couldn't just be in your own magic little bubble in your mom's basement on the internet learning about this band or that band because you don't have a life. You had to go out, you had to mingle with people. You had to go to Nightfall Records or, talk to that really scary looking fucking guy who's the total metal tattooed guy. And oh my God, he looks fucking weird and I don't know what to do. And I'm scared, but I gotta go talk to him because he knows more than I do. It was a thing. And then you find out that Mr. Scary Death Metal guy, he was a Ninja Turtle fan or some shit. And you're like, oh, yeah, just a fucking nerd like me.
Yeah, it's a nerd like me.
Neat,
Yeah, it's the community as well. Yeah, I used my mum, she's fucking probably hated me because I used just about all of her tapes, as we're talking about tape cassettes. I think I used all her old Sting tapes and Concrete Blonde and all that kind of shit. So sorry, Mum, I have to put that out there. April 29th, this album comes out. Everyone get behind it, man. It's an absolute fucking ripper of an album, man, like from start to finish. As I said, it's got the Gary Holt signed seal of approval, and it's got my seal of approval, man, because it's a fucking ripper, man. I'm loving it. Jay, thanks so much for chatting with me, man. I want to have a chat with you later in the year, man, see how things are going. This has been
awesome. I'd love that. Thank you very much.
Blast, man. Do you have any last words, shout outs, or thank yous you'd like to add in there, my friend?
I do, thank you to all of the bands, of course, that have worked with me on this. Gary Holt, as we've said several times, he just was super gracious to help out. One thing, I am doing pre-orders right now, even though the release date's the 29th. I am doing a limited printing on vinyl of only 500 copies on vinyl of this record. I'm trying to get them all pre-ordered before the 29th hits, and they're not going to last long. Pre-orders have already started. I've already, pre-sold a few records, so get on that Satyrn Studios website. Get your pre-orders rolling now.
Yeah, quickly before I go. Yes, vinyl. Grab your fucking vinyl. I love vinyl. That's one great thing I love about metal. Vinyl and even tapes to come back. Pre-order your bloody vinyl. Jay, thank you very much, my friend. You have a lovely evening. Talk to you soon,
Thanks, you
mate.
too, bro. Thank you.
Yes, bro.